I think I'm going to talk a little bit more about my nostalgia thing, my anti-nostalgia thing, because in the video that I recorded yesterday, I ended up just reflecting more upon nostalgia from from the perspective of irony and how it's easy to see if you're nostalgic for a time like the 80s. I use the 80s as an example because it was a decade that I lived through, and it's now this nostalgia vortex for so many people. But that you have to understand there was a lot of idiocy that was being promoted back then, as today, just like today. And arguably, the idiocy that was promoted then was not as bad as, well, probably unarguably, things are worse today. But still, the point that I was making yesterday was you appreciate things nostalgically, sometimes through a filter of irony, but you don't understand that had you lived back then in the 80s, there was no capacity to be ironic about all these really stupid things that were happening. And a point I made in an earlier video is that people think of irony as like a sneering kind of, oh, I'm better than this, I'm making fun of this kind of attitude. But in fact, irony really can be a very softening, humanizing thing, where if you could see something through the filter of irony, you end up having much more compassion for what you're examining. Whereas if you just looked at it straight without irony, you would maybe be much more condemning and much more judgmental of it. Something I've always found. I think that's a benefit of irony that people don't acknowledge. So anyway, moving on to another aspect of this whole my anti-nostalgia crusade, as it were. So when I see these old videos, or these markers of of time gone by, and people who were there at the time, who felt like they were just at their absolute peak as a human being at that time, that they respond in the comment section of these videos, and they say things like, "That was the best time of my life. I drove to that concert in my Camaro. I had the hottest girl in school. Everybody was envious of me. I had everything back then. And now I've just got my memories." Some crap like that. I don't know. And I'm making it sound a little more crass than it necessarily is. But it's always very maudlin, even if it isn't as as crass as the example I just gave. It's always this super indulgence in syrupy sweet maudlin self-pity, really. It's this like oh, it was so much better back then. Suddenly I'm not half the man I used to be. There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, I believe in yesterday. Garbage. I hate it. I hate that kind of response to these kinds of things. Now, you can appreciate things about the past. You can, there's like a responsible kind of nostalgia that one can have for past events. You can look back fondly at certain things. You can miss certain things about the past. But whenever it gets to be this thing like, oh, I had it all back then. The world was so wonderful back then, and now it's I'm just waiting to die. I'm just waiting around to die, and I've lost, and all my glory has faded from my life. here's the way I see it. I'm not someone who, I think most of you would know if you follow me, I'm someone who struggles. I'm not exactly someone who you would say is like, the model of happiness and mental health necessarily. I definitely have my bad days and my really bad days. I'll be completely honest about that. But I don't see, I can't relate to this idea of wanting to be somebody that I'm not. I can't relate to not wanting to be exactly who I am right here, right now. If you'll pardon my inadvertent quote from that cheesy song. If you think that your best days are behind you, for number one, that's probably illusory, because number one, you couldn't see my finger there. That's probably an illusion, because as I explained in that article that I wrote, that I posted to yesterday, one of the things that gives the past this kind of sheen of faux glory to us is just the mysteriousness of it. The fact that it's something that we remember, but which is no longer accessible to us. So it's very real to us because it happened and we were there, and we have pictures and maybe even videos or films to prove it. But we can't go back to it. And so it because of that, it assumes this luster, this sheen of of faux glory, as I'm calling it here. Whereas what's happening to you right now, what you're going through right now, what you're experiencing right now at the age that you are, this just seems mundane, because it is mundane. It's like you just wake up and it's another day in your life, and you're not very happy with or not very impressed by every aspect of your life right now. And maybe you miss being younger. Of course, those of us who are older, we all wish we were younger. We all see the allure of youth, even if we had miserable youths. We still understand the appeal of being younger, and of having possibilities, more possibilities ahead of us, which is more the case when you're young, or it seems to be the case. It's not the case for everybody, because some people die young, but in a general typical sense, if you're in your 20s, you're maybe not happy necessarily with everything about your life, but you think to yourself, well, I'll get it together, I've got time. Whereas if you're older, you don't really think that way anymore. All right, all that is true, but nevertheless, I can say of myself, and I can say this with full honesty, I don't want to be anywhere else but now. And I don't want to be anyone else but me, who I am right now. Is that because I think I'm great or better than others? No. It's not a question of that. It's just, I'm not ashamed to be who I am. There are things that I wish I were handling better. There are things that I wish were different. There are things that I wish were different about the world. Because we're living in 2021 clown world right now, and I'm as aware of that as anybody else. But that can even become a positive in your mind when you think about it this way. For the early church, this is whether you're snake in the grass. Goodbye, little fellow. Snake in the grass come to tempt me to to eternal youth and glory. Here in the garden where I now dwell. Anyway, so for the early church, the degenerate Roman Empire was clown world. It was all messed up. The morals were all messed up. The cosmology, theology, the manner of seeing everything was all messed up. And the members of the early church had a chance to witness to all of this, and many of them gave their lives, in defiance of the degenerate Roman age, degenerate first century Roman Empire. Right now we're living in the degenerate 21st century Babylonian Empire of, I don't know, Globo Homo, whatever you want to call it. And it's bad. But it's also an opportunity, even whether you're religious or not, whether you're, I don't mean for my comparison to the early church to exclude those of you who are of other faiths or who have no faith, because I always take a broad church sort of approach to my rhetoric here. But anyway, you can see living in clown world as an opportunity to, it's a very galvanizing thing when you become aware that the world is so shitty and so terrible and so evil. To be a witness for an alternative, to be a witness for good, for sanity, for justice, for virtue. If that doesn't motivate you, it should. All right. And I speak as someone who, I'm somebody who wishes that, I wish often that I weren't living in clown world. I wish often that I were living in an age of sanity, rather than when we're at the age in which we're living, in which various insane notions are being promoted and extolled by our evil and degenerate would-be rulers. So all this is just to say, I didn't mean to get so grandiose there. All this is just to say, whether you approach it from a personal perspective, just thinking, here's my life now, not in my 20s anymore, but I'm older, or I don't know, I'm in my 20s now, but I miss my high school days, or wherever you might be on your own journey. You need to appreciate where you're at right now and be thankful for being who you are right now, and be thankful for and try to be your best self, and let everything that's wrong with the time in which you're living be a motivator to be your best self. Don't get seduced into thinking it was just so glorious back in the old days, and now everything has gone to shit, and I feel like you know, I just feel like there's nothing to live for anymore. Don't. That's the kind of, you know. And I'm a pessimist. I'm not a wide-eyed optimist at all by any stretch. But I do think this is the way you should see it. Maybe in this sense, you could call me an optimist if you really want. I think. I just think this is like, as part of having self-respect. This is a part of having dignity. This is a part of, you lose dignity, you lose your manful dignity, you lose your self-respect when you allow yourself to become this sort of like the equivalent of these maudlin commenters on YouTube videos who respond to, you know, seeing a concert from some band in the 80s and thinking that this is just glorious and everything was glorious back then. And well, I understand the appeal, but you need to be you need to be happy with who you are right now, and you need to change the thing. If you're not happy with your life right now, change the things you can change, and pray about the things that you can't change. And that's really it, you know. That's really it. And all of this is just was motivated by. I guarantee you, if you don't know what I mean, go back and look at any posting of an 80s song or video, and I guarantee you will see comments like this, like the ones I kind of lampooned before a few minutes ago. And these are people who have just forfeited their dignity, forfeited their manful resolve. And I don't think that's something you should do. I don't think that's something that should even be negotiable. So anyway, that's where I'll leave it off there. Thanks for watching. My name is Andy Nowicki. You can check out my work at altrightnovelist.com.